wishing we don't see that stuff for years.
Years.
Wow.
And it's just like, oh my gosh, this is like, I just wrote this. I can't, like, in a day sometimes an artist will turn something around and you're like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Flash question here, okay? Your successor of Joshua Williamson, who I think wrote like 100 and something issues of Flash.
Yes.
So I just want to know, like, was that a daunting thing? Was that intimidating? What was your mindset following up Josh?
My mindset was like, there's an old country song, you got the money, honey, I got the time, and I'm so desperate. I was still so desperate to do comics. Like, I'll do anything. You give me the Nort miniseries, I'll do it. Like, and that was kind of how Tim and I talked about it. Like, I would do anything. And Cotton came to me with Flash, and I didn't even think about Josh. Really, I was just like, yeah, I'll do it. Like, it didn't matter. It was, they were throwing bread to a hungry pigeon. I was like, yes, of course. And
we
then
were hoping they would give us the most obscure titles that would never be successful, so that if we sold like another extra 1,000 issues, we would be considered heroes. And then they gave us Teen Titans and the Flash.
And with the Flash, it was like they said, you can. I said, here's my thought. I want to do kind of a quantum leapy thing. It'll be really fun. And again, I got to work with incredible. Kevin McGuire did a segment for my Flash. Like, do you know my brain? Like, it's crazy. And they kept letting me do it, and they didn't fire me. And I kept going like, okay, I'll just keep doing it. And then it started the pressure of that. And I feel like the pressure's mounted, where you start to realize, Flash fans and comic fans are like me. I'm a fan. I get mad at things and excited about things, but they've been really pleasant to me. And then you start realizing, oh my gosh, this has been going on for almost 800 issues. And I want to make sure that I'm at least competent with some of the continuity, which has morphed and changed and whatever. And also, that's why that first arc is very much me getting my footing, me finding my voice for Wally, and me kind of touching on all the speedsters so that I can lay the ground for what's to come in the Flash later. But I honestly wasn't thinking about who had come before, because our friend Brandon Vietti had done the Future State, and they were so mad at him. So I was like, oh, I'm good. I mean, not that Brandon cares. He's doing the wildly successful Young Justice. Yeah. And the incredible, Red Hood, Choose Your Own Adventure DVD. He's a certified genius. So, I was just excited to do a book. I did not think they would let me do an ongoing, and I keep thinking that this is a very, small proposition. Because I said, even Tim knows, I kept saying to people like, listen, as long as I'm writing Wally West, he's going to be fine. But like, if they get rid of me, I don't know. That's my like little threat that like, you better keep buying this book or he might die.
Buy the book or Wally gets it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Let me just say one thing about Jeremy, which, is this thing that we knew for years and we used to talk about all the time, which is Jeremy is known among all of his peers and colleagues and people who worked for him or he worked for as the fastest writer alive. I'm not kidding. That's the thing we've always said. Jeremy's the fastest writer alive. And the irony of him becoming the Flash writer and, writing the fastest man alive is just hysterically amazing and beautiful.
It is funny. Yeah, it is funny because Jim would be like, imagine we're a Justice League and you're the Flash, okay? You're the Flash. And then, but he would always be like a little insult too. It's like, you don't really pay attention to things. You just get it done. I'm like, wait, what?
Tim, this question is for you. Red X, was one of the breakout characters of the Future State from last year. My question to you is, whose idea was it to bring Red X from the cartoon onto the page?
Yeah, so that's kind of a weird thing. Like, I was working on Future State and Titans Academy, which were all conceived to be part of one story, which we just wrapped up this week.
Right.
And I was working on it for a while before, like, that first issue came out in January of Future State, and I think I was working on it since the previous, I think April, is when I started. And the reason why it took so long is because we were creating a whole new crew of characters. Rafa Sandoval and I were creating a whole class of new heroes, new kids at the Academy, and they were going to be threaded into other books before even they made their first appearance in Academy. So there was just this big, we were doing something that was supposed to be kind of different than had been done before. It was kind of big. We knew we were doing Titans Academy for 12 issues at that time. And we were going to do a Shazam series too that tied into it. We knew Future State was going to tie into it. And then so we were working on that. And that idea was, let's do Degrassi with capes. And then at some point, a couple months in, after we had really been pretty locked into what the story was going to be, the editor, Mike Cotton, came to me and said, hey, I think we got Red X. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, well, we've been talking to Warner Animation, and it looks like they're going to let us bring Red X into main continuity, which is something we've been trying to do for a long time. And they had not opened that door for us up till now. But I think we can do it. Do you think we can get Red X into this story? And I said, absolutely not. and then when he threatened to fire me, no, I'm just kidding. But I went off. I kind of started thinking about it a little bit, and there were some story threads that would have made sense to sort of maybe adapt into a Red X story. And I said, look, the way I'll do it is, because we know Nightwing was the first Red X. He created Red X. We know there was a second Red X, that the identity was never revealed, who that guy was. And we know it wasn't Nightwing. So I said, and Glenn Murakami, who made that show, has famously said he will never reveal who the identity was of the second Red X. And I said, look, I'm not going to write the second Red X and reveal the identity of that character, because that's not my Red X. I didn't create that Red X, and I don't think it would be fair to Glenn for me to jump into the comics and do that. And they said, fair enough. I said, so let me write a new Red X, a kid who's taken on the mantle of Red X, while Nightwing is his teacher at the Academy, and let's let the ghost of Red X basically haunt the school. And that worked. The only thing is, I threw a wrench in, and I said, they're like, so he's the third Red X. I said, no, he's the fourth. And they were like, what do you mean? I said, there's a third one that no one will ever know about. So that's living out there. Someday someone will pick up that thread.
All right, guys. So you two, along with superstar writer Geoff Johns, are collaborating on the return of the Flashpoint universe. We have a ton of questions about the book, but we want to start with the workflow. How does the workflow work on Flashpoint Beyond? Can you explain the division of labor?
Yeah, I mean, it's much more like a television show. When we met Geoff, Tim and I had this idea that was going to touch on Flashpoint, not like what it ended up becoming, but it was a different thing.
Yeah, it's a completely different thing.
Yeah, and then Cotton was like, hey, maybe we get Geoff involved. I remember meeting Geoff. We were at the smokehouse or whatever the steak place is.
Oh, in Burbank?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
And, being somebody that's read a lot of Geoff Johns, it's intimidating, right? You walk in and he's there and you're like, this is weird. Because
it's intimidating literally up until the moment he walks in the room and he's your buddy who you went to high school with.
Yep, one of the coolest guys.
Out of a comic book.
Yeah. And you're sitting there going like, I've read so many of this guy's books. He's literally shaped the DC universe in so many ways. And so we sat there and started talking, and he got really excited. We got really excited. And so initially what it was we just kind of brainstormed. And then we went to his office, whiteboarded it, and we just started like breaking out what issue's going to be what and how we're going to do it. And he's kind of the showrunner. I mean, why? Of course he is. He's the guy that is done this for a long time. So we collaborate on everything.
And then the idea was, I think in the beginning, even more so than it ended up being, it's incredibly, collaborative. But I think the idea was like, we would each take point on an issue, and, he was taking point and really working on issue 0. Jeremy took point on issue 1. I took point on issue 2. And then that kind of, that kind of evolves, and then everybody kind of has a voice in the process throughout, but
well, and I think he just got really excited, like we got really excited as it kept going on. And it became something, I feel like it became something bigger, especially when the art started coming back too. And we're just like, oh, this is something way more special.
Yeah.
And when I finally read the script for issue 0, I was like, oh, this is much bigger and much grander than even what I thought it could be, you know?
Well, the big thing that we've sort of learned working with, and I will say that's what Jeremy and I have been friends for years. And we came into comics at the same time, and we literally talk to each other every day.
Yeah.
And we like go into this meeting and we're talking about Flashpoint, and we left and we're just like, this is going to be the greatest learning experience for two guys who only recently started working in comics. We're going to get a master class up close and personal with a guy who's written, 1,000 issues of comics. And so that was the way we approached it. And it's been like that. Like and one of the big things we learned right away was, what are the stakes? What are the consequences? Because we're talking about the DC universe. Like, it's not enough for this to just be a little dalliance into the world of Flashpoint, which I think is sort of where Jeremy and I, before Geoff came involved, were kind of thinking of doing. He's like, no, let's really think this out. How does this affect everything?
Yeah.
And how can it affect everything? And then once that sort of just blew open a whole bunch of stuff, and we started thinking much bigger in terms of what this kind of could be. And that's a valuable lesson in sort of crafting stories in a gigantic universe, the way Geoff has always done so effectively.
I've met people that I'm a huge fan of, and it's been a disappointing experience. But with Geoff, you realize, oh, he loves the DC universe. He loves it. And it's not like some sort of artifice or a facade. It's like, this is a real, genuine love. He doesn't have to be doing a comic book. He's doing movies and television, whatever. He doesn't have to be doing this at all.
He does this because he absolutely loves it. And that's infectious. That talk about lessons that you learn from people, mentors and people that you work for. I'm going to drop a name right now, which is that I got to work with Kevin Smith on Masters of the Universe.
Right.
And we actually did a signing for our Masters of the Universe book right before we did the signing with Geoff. And Kevin is the same way, where like working with these people who are very high profile, you think there's an opportunity. These people might not have time for fans. They might not have, they're very busy. They may not have the ability to spend time with people. Kevin and Geoff are very similar in the way that they approach and embrace fans and give so generously of themselves and their time. Kevin stayed after for 3 hours, I think, after our signing, to sign things in the parking lot for people, which he doesn't always do. So don't go thinking that's always the thing for him. We've learned our lesson from people like Geoff and Kevin who, have a great appreciation and a knowledge that those people, the fans, are the people who have made your life possible. And you can't stop being thankful and grateful for that.
I got a processual question here, gentlemen. I like that word, processual. How do you guys prepare to write? When we talk to artists, they have like a warm-up sketch that they do where they kind of like figure out how they're going to pose the pictures and all of that stuff. What does a writer do to prepare? Do you guys do like head massages or something like that? Or like some kind of like keyboard writing?
You're going to love Jeremy's answer because it is so completely true. Here we go.
Wait, what? Like the amount of Red Bull I drink before I read?
Yes. Yes.
I do remember like, how does a writer prepare? By trying to do everything else but write.
Yeah.
I remember going to Alan Burnett's office one time, and it was like, I knocked on the door and I hear, "Oh, please come in, please," and it was like, I opened, he's like, "Oh, thank goodness, I was just about to write." I was like, "Oh, okay."
He would be like, "Please come in, sit down, stay a while, let's talk."
Save me from writing. I mean, that's why deadlines exist. It's like, as long as there's pressure, then it's like, I'll get it done. For me, it is a lot of artificial sweeteners. And
what's the most number of Red Bulls you've consumed?
I'm going to get a lot of
writing a flash script.
A lot. But my point is that what I do is I end up I really just close my eyes and let the story play out. I think about some stuff, but it really doesn't coalesce, especially with comic books, because I don't comic books are different to me than writing a movie or something, because a movie, you kind of have to structure it. I used to never write outlines for movies, and Jim broke me of that habit. And it's like, oh, you have to write an outline, just in terms of getting paid. With comic books, I don't write outlines. I generally sit down and I push play in my head, and
you don't write outlines?
No, and I just start writing, and I start going, you know, panel 1, panel 2, you know, and I do the same thing. And okay, this is going to be the page turn. I know what the page turns are, and I just let it flow naturally, honestly. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Like in Gem World, the Gem World arc in Flash, I thought I had a whole extra book. And it was going to space it out. And there was a lot of jokes and a lot of other stuff. So it feels very rushed to me, because I found out, no, you have to do a crossover with World War for Earth 3. I was like, wait, no, I have to cut this entire book and now space it out in 3 other books, you know? So for me, I just kind of sit down and I push play, and then I just kind of let it go.
So I read, I read Denny O'Neill's book. I think it was Denny's book, where he was like, when you're just starting out, like, you should like just draw all the pages, the way that you know, and I cannot draw, but I did, for my very first comic book was Shazam, Future State #1. Oh, I don't know if you can see that.
Make sure it's the right screen.
And this is my art. Can you see how good my art is, panel to panel? This page actually weirdly came out. I never showed these to Eduardo Pansica, and this page ended up being, so basically this was like, so that I could figure out how to write and describe in words in the script what I was seeing in my head. And then it ended up working well enough that this page in particular, he ended up doing the exact same thing, except like the way a real artist would do it. But yeah, it was.
So this is your process every time you do a issue?
No, like I do it for important pages now.
After fainting from exhaustion, Tim's like,
but that's how I had to start, though. Like I could not understand how to write what I needed to communicate. It was literally like learning a new language when becoming a comic book writer for me. And that was a way that I was able to sort of figure out how to communicate what I wanted to communicate. But in terms of generally what my process is, Jeremy is right. It is like a lot of procrastination. But when you have a really good outline, with Geoff, we have like a pretty solid understanding of, you know, page by page, what the book is going to look like.
Yeah.
And we boarded all that out so that then when you sit down, you know, you feel taken care of, and you know how to start doing the work. So I tend to either work that way, where I create an outline on a whiteboard, or I will, you know, go through and mark the important beats in a script that are cues for me, so that when I get to that scene, I get to that page, I know, okay, this is the thing I'm working on, and now I can sort of blow that out and have fun with it.
All right, guys, so we have a fun question. I want to know if you guys obviously have done very cool projects so far. We've mentioned all of them, but we want to know, if there's no limit, you can do anything. What is your dream project that you would do tomorrow?
Can we talk about these things? Like, what if they're pitches that we can't talk about in pitches?
I can't talk about it. I'll talk about what I can talk about. I do have a pitch. Tim knows this pitch. I have pitched it to everybody under the sun.
Are you going to talk about that?
No, I'm not going to talk about it. But I'm just saying that I do have some pitches. I know there are characters I would like to play with. I can talk about that.
Yeah, can you name a character that you would like to play?
I would love, listen, I mean, everybody knows, who's talked to me more than 5 minutes, knows that I love Ted Cord Blue Beetle very, 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 very much.
Nice, so, there we go.
Love him. All right, Tim. So I didn't know there was, see, you giving us the new lingo. Yeah. They're pitches. Okay, I didn't know that. So you guys were going to let out some pitches. Okay.
Well, nobody is ever going to let me, I don't think DC is ever going to say, okay, it's time, you can write your Tim Drake story. But that's, for me, that's the thing. I really, really want to work on on Tim Drake, but like many writers, but yeah, but but I've been pitching them something for a while and nobody's biting, so I don't think it's gonna happen. Someday, maybe, I don't know.
That's what I do too. I'm like a pitch, and then
you know what? There's another thing though too. Like there was stuff that there were things that I thought about doing in Academy, and that is stuff that I may just do as its own thing too, like, and not do it under the auspices of it's not necessarily doesn't really necessarily have to have anything to do with a particular universe or a particular company. So there are story ideas and things that are cooking too that I might just take elsewhere.
Pitches, Chris. They're called pitches. Tim and Jeremy, it's been awesome. I'm so happy that you guys were able to join us, talk about TV, talk about some comics. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like the Stash family to know about?
Or allowed to, right?
No pitches.
Tim?
Well, first of all, there's not really anything I can plug because things have not been announced, so I can't really talk about it, which sucks.
Well, not even like who you're collaborating with, like not even the talent. Dang.
No, because I'm not announced either, so I can't say anything about it.
Top secret. Let's go.
Okay.
I mean, what we can talk about is that Flashpoint, Beyond is happening right now. My Flash book is happening. I'm crossing over Dark Crisis and my search for Barry Allen. We can talk about that. And then I think, we both have projects coming out this year that's going to be exciting.
All right, here's a collector's question. Speaking of Collector's Paradise, you guys were a part of the signature series there. Signed a bunch of books. We're going to show them on the B-roll. Flashpoint Beyond #1, Flashpoint Beyond 0. Are you guys continuing to sign the books for the duration of the rest of the series, or was that just the one-off thing?
Jeremy and I are going to be signing issues 2 through 6 after I believe they've all been released, and then those are available, I believe, for pre-order now on the Collector's Paradise website, and so, but we're sometimes we do it. Sometimes you do it monthly, and each we go in every month and do it. But for this one, originally the schedule kind of changed a little bit for how Flashpoint Beyond was being released, and so I think we just ended up deciding to do it at the end of the run, which will be
we're going to be there if you sign in store. Let's go.
Yes. Tim and Jeremy, it was an honor. It was a great treat to have you guys on the show. We love to have you guys back, especially maybe toward the end of Flashpoint Beyond, number 6. It's a monthly, right? It's a monthly series. Well, that's all for our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe and hit that like button. We are the Stash Bros. I'm Mike, speaking for Chris, Tim Sheridan, and Jeremy Adams. We are out.